Welcome to another edition of AV Rant. I'm Tom Antry, Associate Editor of Audioholics, and I'm here with.
Rob H. This is AV Rant, the show where we answer your questions about home theater and all things audio video. And if you happen to be joining us live or seeing this early, no, it is not a mistake. We are actually recording on a Monday evening. It's like a special deal because we were a week behind and we have too many questions to fit into one podcast. Back to back, two in a row.
Technically, we have too many questions that I will tolerate in one podcast. Rob is perfectly happy to go 5, 6 hours at a time, but
That might be a bit much. Yeah, I figure two 1.5 hour podcasts instead of a single 3 hour one is a little bit more tolerable. So we'll see how this goes.
yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. So this is a Monday. We usually record 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesdays. I
Hmm.
saw on Josh Pollard was here with us last week. If you guys didn't check that, you should from the Entertainment to 2.0 podcast. And I saw on
Hmm.
his website they had a little page where you could actually view it live. I figured I did that, and then I'm going to do it myself. I'm stealing that crap. So that will be on there. And I'm getting to the point where I'm about ready to redo the AV Rant website. Anyways, it's about
Ah. Uh-huh.
every once in a while. It's like you got to dress it up a little
We
bit.
should
So
update our iTunes feed too, where it still describes the podcast as being a sexy girl and a geeky guy.
you're the sexy girl.
Yay! Yeah. Good luck with
You
that.
really you've really let yourself go, Rob. I'm disappointed in you.
Uh-huh. Oh dear.
Yes. So that's where this podcast is going to go today. In case you're wondering, that's it. That's the direction we're going. We're going in the Rob's a sexy little girl.
Oh, okay. Oh, gee, little is added to it now. Wow, it's
Well, I mean, I wouldn't. Hey, I don't want to hurt your feelings. I'll call you fat or nothing. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you look like from the shoulders down.
that's true.
For all I know, dude, you're a pumpkin down there, but you might be like a little rail. Who knows? So I'm going to let my imagination run wild now. So
Hmm.
all right. So first of all, let's welcome the three people that are now viewing us. But for the most part, we recorded at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Google Plus and the YouTube channel that you can find pretty easily. Google Plus, it's Tom Andrew, my name, and I believe the same thing over at YouTube is our YouTube channel. So you gotta find us there. And if you want to watch us live, if not, you can always download the podcast and any of your favorite download podcast things by searching. If you are interested in having your question answered on the podcast, all you need to do is ask. You can do that by emailing us. Actually, go to the website, www.avrant.com, leaving a comment. We will see that, and we will put it into our show notes for things that we will be answering in the next show or two or three, depending on how far behind we are.
Uh-huh.
You can email us at rob@avrant.com, tom@avrant.com. Got Twitter handles. Rob is at FirstReflect, and I'm at avrant_tom. Facebook.com/avrantpodcast is our Facebook page, where we are quite active. And by we, I mean Rob, because I haven't been active. But I have my reasons. I'm
I try to
recovering,
get the
so
show notes up over there. It's an attempt. It usually happens.
I I've been trying to make sure that I put more links in the show notes too, so that you're
Hmm.
not feeling
Yes,
the
that
need
has
to
been a
put
help.
stuff in there. Yes. So you're the one that kind of volunteered to start putting all those things on the show notes in the Facebook page. So I'm not feeling too guilty about that. Now, we don't have any listeners of the week this week, but if we did, they would be the people that had gone to avrant.com and clicked on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee. That supports the podcast, helps pay for our hosting fees, amongst other things. In no way
Hmm.
gets your question to the top of the pile. Though if you,
Nope.
it really doesn't. It is almost exclusively sequential, like chronological. Though I do think there are some shifting about if there's some groupings, common
Occasionally.
groupings.
Yeah, if there's two very similar type things, I'll try to put them together. That
Yeah,
I think
but
that makes logical sense.
generally speaking, it is chronological. So, but it is very helpful and it's very appreciated when we do get our listeners of the week, and we will mention you on the podcast. If you have a business or you want to pimp something, I guess yeah, I guess that would work too. So honestly, if you just send us stuff and say, "What do you think of this?" and don't tell us that you're the owner of whatever that thing is, there's a 50-50 chance we won't slam it. So you can go that direction if you like. I think the other way it probably works out better in your favor. But that would be almost like an ad. Wouldn't it be nice to have an ad? I think we should have an ad.
Ooh, yes. Sponsorship.
Sponsorship would be nice. I would feel so used. in a good way. All
You're
right.
so relaxed. You think we have so much time. This is going to end up being like 2.5 hours now.
I don't really care. I don't care. I don't care. I didn't even get myself a drink, so I don't even have any water or anything. So if
Oh,
I start
man.
coughing halfway through and I disappear, just keep
Mm-hmm.
talking, okay?
Yep.
Because I'm out.
Done and
Um,
done.
all right. So if you want to get your questions in, you know how. We do record 9 p.m. Eastern, and afterwards we have a hangout for any listeners that want to hang out and they get invited. All you got to do is put me in a circle on Google Plus, and then I put you in a circle, and then we're all circling the wagons and whatever. And that's how you get invited. Or you get the invite, then you're allowed to join.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how that works. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. This is the first half of our questions. I should have called this one 404.1 and then 404.2, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to keep going. But to start with, we'll have some updates. Well, I don't know what that is. The speaker company in Australia that Tony wants us to talk about for obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm. You'll see.
Jeff's got some photos of his home theater, which looks really nice. I just want to say before we go on, I was watching some sort of renovation show on HGTV the other day, and the people had bought a house that had a home theater in it, and they were like,
Uh-huh.
"This room is so creepy. Look how dark it is. Oh, it's so creepy. I bet people have died in here." I'm like, there would be two people dead in there if I was there during the part where you guys were talking about this thing, because that theater was awesome. It was, I mean,
Ooh.
it was very nicely done. I mean, yes, it was darker. Of course it was.
Mm-hmm.
But that's when we were talking about somebody's like, should I paint my room black? I'm like, I don't know, dude, because you're gonna have somebody come in making fun of your room. But they had panels built into the wall. Speakers were, behind fabric. It was
Oh,
very
really? Oh,
clean,
well.
drop screen and
Yeah.
everything, man. Really, really clean. And they're like, oh, it's creepy in here. I don't know what's going on. I'm like,
Yeah, just
oh.
turn up your subwoofers as loud as they'll go and give them a heart attack,
Yeah,
and then yeah,
I
people have
very much
died inside.
wish that you people had not bought that house. Anyway, so Nick B explains to us, because we questioned this when we were talking about his last question, why he auditioned a pair of Aperion Veris Grand center speakers instead of the bookshelves when he did his audition, when he tried out a bunch of different ones.
Mm-hmm.
John C listened to our interview with Chris Kyriakis from I'll get it. Shut up. I'll
It
get
was
it.
pretty close the second time.
You know what? I don't ever hear you pronouncing his name, so whatever. I mean,
Kyriakakis. I've
that's
said
what
it
I
multiple
said.
times. My mic's just been too quiet, which I do need to apologize for. Last podcast, I don't know what was going on there in the video version. Audio version turned out fine as expected, but yeah,
Because
I
I
do
level matched
apologize.
everybody before we
Yeah, I know.
when you beat it magically happens by the magic of Tom's finger.
Well, it
All
all
right.
looks fine in
Anyways,
my audio recording version.
John was John appreciated that interview, but he tried out Odyssey's Media Player app for iPhone and wants to report on that. Eliezer pokes fun at an ad from Zoo Audio, which is like really not that hard, but yeah, they
It's
make
a
it
good
so
ad.
easy. Moanis, I'm going with
Moani.
Moanis.
I believe it's Moani.
Moani?
I think so. I'm
Well, I
pretty
guess
sure
that
that's how
makes
it's
sense.
pronounced. Yeah.
Whatever. He wants to hear our recommendations for what type of surround speaker he should buy. Wilson has an Odyssey Sub EQ HT Sub EQ HT. I don't remember. Anyway,
Yeah.
dual subwoofer setup question wants to know more about the brand Pinnacle. Pinnacle is a speaker manufacturer. We're talking a little bit about them. Not that either of us have heard them, but we'll talk about them anyways. Barney wants to hear our thoughts on whether a room optimized for surround sound can also sound good for two-channel. Fred really, really took Tom's make a spreadsheet advice for subwoofers to heart and has sent us his spreadsheets. And I have to say, I'm all a quiver because I love it, Fred. I love it. I was like, this looks just like the thing I did. So you and I have the same insanity, Fred. Whatever that is, whatever chromosome deficiency it is, we have it. And oh my God! Now I will say that when I first read the summary of his question, it said Fred has a 20-foot wide by 15-foot long, and I just stopped reading right there and thought that is a big ass spreadsheet. That was all I could think was that his spreadsheet was that big. I was like, holy crap, he really did take it to heart. But then it was just a normal size spreadsheet. I was almost disappointed when I opened it up. And last but not least, Tim heard all of our advice, and now he needs some recommendations on think. Oh, speakers.
Yeah,
Looks like
mostly
he's not
speakers
talking
right
about
now.
speakers. Tim was the one that had a basement that had a bunch of really old equipment and wanted to know what we thought he could salvage, and we basically said, throw it away. And he's going to do that.
You
So
said that.
I did say burn it, kill it with fire. Uh, and he's going to. So just make sure that when you go out and do all your purchasing that you tell them that it's because of. You can say just me, but I would prefer you say it for the podcast. All
Oh
right.
yes,
So first
and
of all, we have some.
anyone who sent
What?
in a question in the last 2 weeks, if you didn't hear your question mentioned in this rundown right now, don't worry, it's coming up tomorrow.
Tomorrow on our normal podcast time, we will
Yep.
be seeing you. All right. So first of all, we've got some news. Dirac, which is a
Mhm.
room correction sort of company, DSP company, released a new version of their live room correction suite with 192 kilohertz support. This means that
Hmm.
they're unlike Odyssey, which we talked about a couple weeks ago with Chris, whatever the hell his last name is, uh, Kirikakis, whatever. He
Yes.
he said that just from processing power alone, they downmix it to 48 and go from there.
Yes.
Uh,
Well, not Odyssey directly.
no,
Odyssey could theoretically go however high they want, but there's
right.
really no need or desire to do so right now in most of
Drac,
the
on the
AV
other hand,
manufacturers.
has that's really kind of a software suite that
Yeah.
goes on your computer.
Hmm.
So therefore, there is tons of processing power available. You're not really limited by what somebody has shoved into the back corner of a receiver. So they've implemented this, and now it's available to download for their stuff. So there was a review Rob will link up, or I will link up. Maybe I'll link it up, make it easier for Rob.
Well, it's an
Uh,
older one.
it is, but I reviewed for Audioholics only a couple of years ago a the Dirac like player app for
Hmm.
iPhone and iDevices that basically was specifically geared towards the earbuds or the
Yeah.
whatever the other one was. They call it there's the
Ear pods.
ugh, makes
That's
me
the name, man.
just makes me die inside every time I hear that. But just a little bit. Anyways, and that it really worked. It was like, wow, these sound so much better. So I have no doubt that they have the ability to put some earphones onto a mannequin's head, measure it, and come up with an inverse curve, and then give you something better than what they have. But yes,
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of what Dirac says, because I don't have any firsthand experience with
no,
it, and there's that little bit of a thing that bothers me, which happens all the time on the forums and that, and I'm sure I've mentioned it before, but it's the whole thing where it's like anything that is newer or less popular or not as well known is somehow automatically better than all the things that are already on the market. And that attitude I don't care for because I mean, it leads to things like undeserved hype and that. So I'm not saying that's the case with Dirac. I mean, there's every possibility that they're doing a really good job, but are they doing a way better job than what Odyssey is doing or something like that? I mean, I kind of highly doubt that. In the review that Tom mentioned that I'll link up, I mean, they're mentioning how Dirac being like a $600 or a $700 software suite and working on your computer, and it's capable of doing things. And the thing that was really stressed in the review is how much more manual control you have over the settings and things like that versus what they call like a low cost consumer implementation of Odyssey or something, right? And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of true. Like if you got, standard multi-Q and a, inexpensive AV receiver, yeah. But as we talked about in that interview with Chris Kyriakakis, haha, I said his last name.
sure.
You know, they do have Odyssey Pro, and you can purchase that just as an individual, as a consumer, and it's around the same price as Dirac.
Is it
And
really? I thought it was a lot
it
more
is.
expensive than that.
Oh, it's like I think it's like $600-700. That's
Oh,
the price everyone says. And in Odyssey Pro's case, they give you the microphone. In Dirac's case, you have to supply your own microphone. So total price could be even higher. So, yeah, I'm just a little bit dubious on all the people who are like really over the moon about Dirac, like me, without having even heard it. Because there's a lot of people on the forums who are like, "Oh yes, it's the best thing ever," and they haven't even used it. So that's the part where I'm a little bit hesitant on the whole thing of it could be every bit as good as Odyssey. Maybe it's even better. I don't really think it's going to be a tremendous difference because it's very, very
I
similar.
am
It's
not
very similar.
convinced that it's going to be better. That's for
Yeah.
sure. There's nothing that I've really heard that made me think it was going to be better. They can certainly EQ to headphones, though. I mean, that's my experience with them. Now, I did just get. Is it on here? I think it's on here someplace. Hold on. Yeah. I did come across a Kickstarter from XTC, which is. I don't know if it's actually the same company that is Dirac or whatever, but they're working with Dirac to create a headphone called Headphone Divine, which makes me think it's some sort of cross-dressing headphone, but it's not. It's an on-ear headphone solution.
Oh.
It looks fairly awful. I mean, as far as just from the actual
Industrial
aesthetics
design.
of it, I don't think the design is very good. But there's a Dirac DSP app that goes specifically for these headphones, and they're $100. And basically, if you look at their marketing material, they're showing, that they are EQing this thing to absolutely flat,
Right.
which is not exactly what we want in a headphone. But okay, because
we want
and we talked about this a couple of.
flat.
Right, we want perceptually flat, and that's kind of where I think that I think we're a lot of people are behind the times when it comes to Odyssey and these others. Is that we're beyond being able to say I just want everything to be flat. I do want everything to be flat when it comes when I'm talking about raw performance from a driver or from a speaker. I do want that, but that's because between the speaker in the room and everything else that's going on, I don't want to have it be the speaker that's the problem. I want everything else to be able to be fixed. Odyssey cannot fix a speaker that sucks. It can take a speaker that's good in a slightly off room with slightly wrong placement and fix it, and adjust it so that it sounds as good as possible. But it cannot make sounds that cannot be reproduced by the speaker.
Yes.
It cannot have those things. Just like Dirac when I was using with the earbuds, it could not give me bass. It gave me a little bit of bass, but it can't give you bass. It's just not there. Those drivers can't reproduce it. So that's why I'm looking for a flat out of a speaker. But out of a headphone, the Harman research suggests that there's a curve. There's an optimal curve that we want. And Odyssey, and it's not just Odyssey, but Odyssey's dynamic EQ is trying to keep that perceptual flatness, that perceptual evenness of the sound across the frequency response, the same as volume goes up and down. And I don't think anybody else is doing that right now. That being said, hey, I'm glad at least they're doing it for these higher end guys, because frankly, and I see what you're saying, Rob, when it comes to people getting all bent out of shape because it's like, oh well, Odyssey, everybody's got that, so it must suck.
Yeah. That's the part I really don't like. Where just because this is newer and more expensive, it's automatically must be better.
But
I don't know about that.
As long as they're getting into this idea that like DSP or frequency response correction can make a difference, then we can get away from them thinking that it's the power cable that's making the difference.
Yeah, and there is the fact that with Odyssey Pro, it does have to be connected to an AV receiver or a pre-Pro that actually has the DSP chips in it, and that's the thing that is ultimately applying the correction curves. In the case of Dirac, it can be coming directly out of your PC. So that is a difference. I mean, there isn't really much of a other solution where if you're just using your PC as your source and driving your, connecting that directly to your amplifiers, there isn't really another solution to do that. So that's awesome. But I mean, the news itself here about, now supporting 192 kilohertz, I'm really quite set against the whole playing back at 192 kilohertz idea now, just because of all the things that we've, not just the stuff we've talked about, but looking at the research at Ziff and even going by people who are just basically going by ear, like Mark Waldrop and things like that. Like the 96 kilohertz 24 seems like mathematically accounting for human error, accounting for what can actually be played back, accounting for what can actually be picked up by a microphone. Like that seems like the optimal setting is 96 kilohertz sampling, 24-bit bit depth. So yeah, going up to 192, like when you start trying to play back 96 kilohertz, there's no microphone that picks that up and no speaker that can play it back. So all you could possibly have at that point is distortion.
Yeah.
So it's like from a practical side, I just don't see the need.
But bigger is better, so whatever. Okay, so over on Facebook, Jeff G will be posting some of his photos of his dedicated theater. He's got one of those really massive PB12 Plus 2 subwoofers. It has two 12-inch drivers in it in a box the size of a cow or something. It's immense. But after a discussion a few weeks ago, Jeff has decided he'll try and sell that massive sub in favor of two smaller subwoofers that he'll be able to better position in this room, but only if he gets a decent enough offer. And maybe he will, depends on where he lives, I suppose. But he sent us some photos, and it shows a very clean install, very nice arrangement of acoustic treatments. And he's got like some diffusion on the ceiling, but it's kind of checkerboarded across, so it's not like, you know, covering everything. But he's got a flat panel and on the wall, that the screen that drops in front of it. It's really kind of nice.
Yeah, it's a nice tensioned front projection screen that can come down in front of the flat panel. Yeah, it's a really nice setup. It's very, very blue in there.
Is that what that color? It looked very black to me on my screen, but it's a Mac when you. So I'm sure at some point I calibrated it, but I turned the brightness way down because I had this I had my computer over the weekend at a writers conference I went to, and the woman who was sitting next to me kept looking over my shoulder, so I kept turning the brightness down, trying to keep it a little bit secret, so maybe I messed that up. Tony C found. Okay, so basically, he wanted us to have a look at Somanus.
I'm going to go with Somanus, yeah.
Somanus. It looks like Sumanus. Okay?
Yes.
S-U-M-M anus. So, anyway, Somanus Audio out of Melbourne, or Melbourne, as they say down there. Which, by the way, I really liked living in Perth, but Melbourne was by far my favorite city that I visited. It felt very much like sort of San Francisco. But then again, I was staying kind of in the touristy area, and there was I think it was called the Queen's Market or something like that, which is kind of an open airish sort of thing that happens like 3 or 4 times a week. It's really nice. Get like crazy jerky there. That was awesome. But it was a really cool place. Anyways, so the name of this company is Somanus. The audio, they make speakers, as far as I can tell, or speaker-like boxes. You really don't have to spend very much time on the site to see that it's sort of full of marketing crap. So.
Well, I like that what sets them apart. The number one thing, according to their own list of what sets them apart, is that they use handcrafted solid MDF wood construction for a natural organic timbre.
Yeah, I kind of raised an eyebrow at that organic timbre because I don't know how organic it is to have
lots of glue.
Essentially sawdust held together by glue. I don't know. I don't really think that that's as organic as you think it is.
Yeah, okay. And I'm really not sure that MDF sets you apart from other speaker manufacturers.
Yeah, I don't understand how handcrafted and CNC techniques go together either. That's all mentioned in the same page. Quality drivers sourced from leading international brands. Unfortunately, on this site I could not find a mention of a brand. They did mention countries they come from. Oh, it's a Danish driver. Well, does it have like a filling
Danish
in the middle?
Would be,
well, you think it's
Scanspeak? Probably Scanspeak, yeah.
But why won't they say that? Everybody else says it. Why won't they say it? Because it's not Scanspeak. Because if it was Scanspeak, they sure as hell would say it. It's another Danish company.
It would be hard to claim that it sets them apart. So use Scanspeak drivers. Yeah, anyway, we have no idea whether these sound any good or not. There's every chance that they do. They're going for a fairly high efficiency design. They're saying the whole reason they started their company is because they want to go back to the days of vinyl when they had highly efficient speakers, and apparently now they don't think that those type of speakers exist.
When you think of inefficient speakers, Klipsch speakers come to mind, right? Thank God those aren't around anymore. Jesus.
Anyway, their marketing is what's silly. They might be great speakers.
They very well may be the best speakers on the. They should definitely change their name, but they very well may be the best speakers on the planet. Now, that said, they do make one that's in the shape of a pyramid, which is ridiculous.
Like really, really in the shape of a pyramid.
I mean, it will hurt you. Okay, it is very sharp. It looks like, honestly, if okay, let's put it this way: if if the hero in a movie walked into a room and the camera panned across and you saw that speaker, you would
Mm.
know immediately that somebody was going to die on that thing
Yep.
eventually. It
Yep.
was not. It was inevitable that one of their better speakers that has a ribbon driver and a single woofer of some sort, and then a side firing port because
And it's
of
going to have
course it
some
does.
weird diffraction from that shape of a cabinet,
One
but
would think.
it is
One would think
tall
they had
and
all sorts of reasons why it was like this too.
mm,
Uh, handcrafted square-based pyramid.
that would be a pyramid.
Yeah, it's built for clarity and precision.
Oh, good.
This triangular structure provides the richest cabinets available. So there's that.
Okay.
I don't know how they're crossing over that ribbon into a 6.5-inch carbon fiber Kevlar driver. Whatever. I don't know how they're doing that. So these components are from Germany and Denmark, but
Okay.
we won't
Well,
tell you where.
could be C's and Fountech.
It's the seventh wonder of the speaker world. The first six were, why the hell did you make a why the hell did you make a speaker in the shape of a
Well,
pyramid?
hopefully that levitating on magnets spherical one is one of the above, speaker wonders of the world.
One would think.
Yes.
Do you remember Nohr? Nohr? You remember those speakers? Have you seen those?
No, I can't say as I do.
They look kind of like a cornucopia. They look like a thing, and they're made out of rock. They were made out of rock
Ah,
a long time ago. They're single driver speakers. I remember that I had the same reaction when I saw those. I was like, yeah, that's stupid. And then here, okay, Nick. A few weeks ago, Nick told us how he brought in three pairs of popular internet direct speakers and compared them head to head. We wondered aloud why he had opted for a pair of Appearing Audio's Veris Grand center speakers rather than their bookshelf speakers. Nick explained that he will be using an acoustically transparent screen setup that makes tower speakers an awkward fit. Some of the speaker would end up below the bottom of the frame, and in some cases a woofer might be directly behind part of the frame, so he's only considering smaller speakers. In the case of Appearing, he can contact them directly, and they suggested that the stereo pair of Veris Grand Center speakers, as they would allow him for greater output. Those are ported. I think those are ported.
is the center
Yeah,
actually ported? Because I
I,
thought it was a front-firing passive radiator on that one.
you very well may be correct. It's right in the other room. I literally could. It's 5 feet away. Uh, I'm trying to remember. I think you might be right. I think there would be a switch back there too that tells you that you can make some adjustments on it based on that. So
Hmm.
that could be another reason why they suggested that, because if he's going to put it
Yep.
behind a screen very close to a
Yeah.
wall,
Right
it
up close to a wall. Yeah.
makes real sense. So on SVS, on the other hand, told them that their Ultra bookshelf was a better choice as a stereo pair rather than the two of the Ultra center speakers. So he was simply following the advice of the companies themselves. He does wonder how the various grand bookshelf speakers would have stacked up, but since he wound up keeping the Ascend Acoustics here two bookshelf speakers anyways, it's mostly just curiosity, so doesn't care. And I don't blame him, because he's happy with the speakers, and I think he
Nope.
made a good choice, because he's happy with the speakers, and that's so.
But thank you for the explanation. That
Thank you.
all makes sense.
You know what? It's a great idea. If you're going to buy speakers from a company and you're going to have
Hmm.
some non-optimal, I won't even care. You're like, if you're going to place them exactly what they say, call them up because they might go, we've been we've been having people have more success with this other speaker, even though this one
Hmm.
that you want is a little bit more expensive. This other one is a little bit better. Might be better for you. You never know. So give them a call. They might try to upsell you, in which case, just buy what you want anyways. John C. Wrote to thank us for a recent interview with Chris Kirikakis from Odyssey. I'm never getting it right, and I don't care. I already stated on this podcast not to pronounce things properly. I had to put that down. John tried the Odyssey Media Player app for iPhone that Chris mentioned. He says it rocks. And he
Hmm.
cannot believe the improvements in clarity it made with his AKG K240 headphones, as well as with his Cosson Apple earbud earphones. AirPod earphones, which were also supported models in the Media Player apps database. So that you know, because of the way Apple works, they will not let you put some sort of EQ that is universal across their entire across their entire device. Okay, so their media player, their the normal iTunes app that's on there, you cannot add something to that. So if you want to have like Dirac is the same way. If you want
Hmm.
to add an EQ to something, you have to have your own player, and then you add the EQ to it. So that's what Odyssey has done, and they have their own player, and then so you're no longer using iTunes. You're using it doesn't. I don't think they usually don't use double copies of the music, so they're just still grabbing it from the same library. But if they're playing
Yeah.
it through this app, and then Odyssey has a very long list of supported headphones that essentially they do what everybody else does. They put the headphones on a dummy head, measure them, and get a bunch of pairs of them until they get what they think is a pretty representative sample, and then that's from there. That's what they use to um, create their curves. So
Hmm.
pretty cool.
Yep. Headphone correction. And yeah, as Chris said, Odyssey actually has the currently largest database of headphones for such. BTS is definitely working on building as big a database as they can for their Headphone X format, but that's a different thing because Headphone X is about basically trying to turn any recording into a sort of binaural sounding recording and giving you pseudo surround sound out of headphones as opposed to frequency response correction. So at current, no way to layer one on top of the other since it's the same thing. It's a dedicated player from DTS that does that. So yeah, maybe one day we'll see frequency correction and pseudo surround sound
Yeah,
all in one app.
yeah. There's a very it's not a great app, but there's an app I think I've mentioned on the podcast before. The name's going to escape me for right now. I think it's Xeno Player, Xeno, something like that. It's Xeno for Android, which is a player that it's free download, and it's got a really weird interface that you have to like watch videos to figure out. But once you figure it out, it's not too bad. But it does have its own EQ, and it's very intuitive. It's literally there's a line, and you just like adjust it with your
Oh, I
finger.
see.
And it's free. And the guy, I actually deleted it because I wasn't really using it. I deleted it off my phone because he updates it like every stupid day. I just got tired of downloading the updates because I wasn't using it. Anyways, okay, so Eliezer points fun at an ad from Zoo Audio for their cables. Now, we're going to have to read you that ad. We will link this up, so go to the show notes or whatever. For those of you that are watching live, I'm sure there's a way for me to... Actually, there may be a way.
Yep, I'm sure there's a way.
Yeah.
Are we really
So,
gonna fiddle with that one?
I might. I might.
Okay.
I might do that. Hold on. I'm going to do it.
In any case, perhaps I'll carry on while Tom does that. Yes, Eliezer was, he only saw the first half, the top half of this ad until he scrolled down. And since it starts off by saying, if the event MK2, Mark II, that is, doesn't make a difference in your system, dot, dot, dot. Yes, he was hoping that maybe the end of that sentence would be something along the lines of, we'll give you your money back. No, no, no. Their claim in their ad is, if the event MK2 doesn't make a difference in your system, sell your system. That's what they want you to do. If they're cables, these are cables, by the way, the event MK2, and in this case, these are RCA cables, like a stereo pair of red and white RCA cables. Yeah. So
There
anyway,
we
obviously
go.
that's silly marketing buzz. Yes, Tom,
I
congratulations
did it.
posting an image for the live viewer
I did it.
and setting a horrible
Magic.
precedent as all the audio only viewers or listeners are going to be like, oh great, it's going to be another one of those
No,
podcasts.
it's a horrible precedent because I pressed the button and you completely went away for a while. And then you came back and we heard all of it. So sorry about
Ah,
that. Basically, for those of you that didn't hear it before, it's just a stupid ad, and it says if
yeah.
cables, if these cables don't make a difference, then it's your system, so sell that.
But yeah, the more fun part is the PDF that Zoo Audio has put out, which I mean, I have to almost give them credit because within their own silly ad PDF, they basically poke fun at themselves for all the claims that they're making. I mean, at one point they say the line, "Seriously though, these cables are actually really good." Like, what was the actual? Yeah, seriously though, they are very good. I mean, that's a verbatim line out of their own PDF advertisement.
yeah.
Who
Uh,
writes that?
the cables require I'm reading this now. The cables
Mm-hmm.
require a fair amount of use before they're fully burned in, roughly
Mm.
400 hours. We do not recommend any burn-in devices or special recordings. We do recommend music you enjoy, preferably
Oh.
preferably upbeat full spectrum recordings. So rock, roots, full orchestra, big band. I am still reading this.
Yeah, because
If you would
sweeps
like,
would not work.
that's right, sweeps don't work. And yeah, so and you don't want any depressing music because then your cables will be sad. Okay, so now I'm reading again. If you would like us to burn this cable in for you, there's a small non-refundable charge and a 3-week delay. I
Mm.
want to know whether or not you can pick out the music that they used to burn it in.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, in case your cables need to have a special mood when they arrive. Yeah, no, I mean, just some of the lovely claims. These cables have the widest bandwidth. Oh, great. Okay.
These are RCA cables, dude. I
Yeah,
mean,
RCA cables. Yeah, 60-day guarantee. Oh yeah, the dielectric is virgin undyed Teflon. I mean, you got to make sure it's that virgin Teflon.
no
Yeah,
one's being molested.
one of the quotes I like. The magic of design is not in the stuff; it's in the electrodynamics. What? It's not in the stuff. Okay,
Pretty sure it's in the
thank you.
stuff. I'm fairly certain the stuff is the important bit.
Of course, that was after like two paragraphs of talking about what stuff makes the cables, but it's the magic's not in the stuff; it's in the
Do we know how much these
electrodynamics.
cables cost? Do we know how much they cost? We don't,
I
right?
looked at the only thing I could find was actually like a wholesale price where they're about $800 for a 6 foot pair. So I imagine the retail price is probably closer to at least
1600.
1600.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for six.
yeah. Oh yeah, the most influential component, parallel capacitance. That was one of the quotes. Yeah.
I they should call these cables like instant divorce because if I ever spent $1,600 on a pair of cables, my wife, you wouldn't even find the pieces of me. That would be gone.
Shielded from electromagnetic and vibrational radiation.
Yes, because we all know that's how we got the Hulk. With too much
Vi-
shaking of things,
Vibrational radiation.
often known to give off gamma rays. Uh, uh,
Okay, yeah, don't buy these cables. That's the long and the short of it. Even they would tell you don't buy these
Honestly, to be
cables.
honest,
They're
I think they
laughing at
might say that.
themselves.
They might say that. Do you really want them? I think that should be the every single customer call. What? Seriously? I thought you were going to call to tell us that. No, you want? Sure. I guess
Uh,
we've got some. Do you want us to burn them in first? Now, we just want to let you know that even though we've spent 3 weeks burning them in, playing the exact music you asked us to, they will still be in the original packaging. We will repackage them for you. I don't want you to think that we didn't take them out, because we did. But just so you know.
okay, that was a
Makes
good
it
laugh.
cheap in a Ziploc bag. That would be even better, right?
That's right. Yeah, to prove that we took them out of the package and burned them in, they
Better
arrive
in
in a
a
plain
Ziploc
bag.
bag. That would be awesome.
Non-refundable.
Wonderful. Can't get that back. Oh man, I bought these $1,600 cables and they didn't make a difference. And damn it all, if I don't have to sell my $50,000 speakers because of it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah, because they didn't make a difference, so I better sell my system.
Yeah.
Okay,
All
there
right,
we tied it all back.
Moani has a right. Moani, is that what we're going with?
I'm
Has
going with that. Yep.
a Denon AVR X3000, which is just 1,000 less good than my 4,000. That's still in the box. I'm sorry. And an SVS PB2000. Yes.
Mm.
Subwoofer and Empyrean Audio Veris Forte tower speakers. He wants to add a pair of surround speakers, and he says that he has a smallish room. We would recommend Empyrean's Veris Forte bookshelf speakers or the Veris Surround Dipole Bible speakers. Rob?
Yeah, so okay, I don't know the exact dimensions of the room, but smallish is what he's saying. Now, if those speakers are going to be directly to either side of you, and if they're fairly close to your head, as in you can probably tell just by imagining if you put bookshelf speakers in those spots and had them firing directly across the room at one another, and unless right at your head or directly over your head, would they be distracting? And if the answer is yes, then go for the dipole slash bipole speakers and try both. I mean, I tend to usually prefer bipole myself, but if they're right beside you and they're close to your head, then dipole might sound better because you will have that null where your head is, and you will only be hearing the reflected sound instead. So yeah, if not though, I mean the regular Veris Forte, I think they actually call them their satellite speakers because they're quite a bit smaller.
Yeah.
But those are a good choice for going on a wall. They're front ported, so they won't have any problems that way. They're quite lightweight, so any sort of wall mounts will work for them. And yeah, if they're not going to be in a position where they're going to be distracting, just price wise, there's no real reason to avoid the monopoles. So hopefully that's sort of enough of an answer. I don't know, Tom, though you might feel differently.
Uh, let me say this. If you're looking for that more movie-like experience where you are, immersed in it and you're not really noticing the surrounds, it's just sort of this ambient sort of thing that happens. I think a dipole bipole speaker is kind of the way to go. If you're somebody that likes to be wowed by your surround sound speakers, getting the bookshelf, they will not. They will sometimes blend just fine, but they will sometimes not. And at times when they don't, it's kind of exciting to have like, whoa, there's a sound that's coming from over there. It's also kind of distracting, but it can be very dramatic. So what do you listen to? What are you using this for? Are you like a surround sound music kind of guy? Well, then you might want the bookshelf. Are you the movie guy and it's gonna be a bunch of sound effects back there? Well, go with the dipole bipole. Either way, you're kind of gonna be okay. I really don't think you're gonna be unhappy with either purchase. If it were me, I would probably go with the dipole bipole speaker myself. I think that's just
Yeah, for surrounds, it's probably a little safer because I mean, in bipole mode, if they're not directly beside you, in bipole mode, they're effectively acting as a really, really wide dispersion speaker.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I tend to think that's probably the
I've
safer.
done it both ways, man. I've had your dipole bipole speakers to the side of me for years and years. When I was in Australia, I had them at the end of I had bookshelf speakers at the end of my couch, pointing at my freaking head.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as I was sitting in the middle of the couch, I thought it was fine. And my wife didn't apparently mind having a speaker
Right.
right next to her ear, which is where she sat all the time. So worked in my favor, but it was a little bit more obvious where these sounds were coming from
Mm-hmm.
than when I had the dipole bipole. So I think you can go either way. I know that's not helping, but like
Yeah,
I
we
said,
gave some info.
I would probably go with Rob's suggestion, but if you went the other way, I wouldn't hold it against you. Wilson bought the Denon AVR X4000, which makes it exactly the same good as mine. After hearing Tom rave about the one that's still in the box, he's he's a tiny bit disappointed that he can't tweak as many settings as his old Sherwood R972, but he's not too upset since everything pretty much just works. It just sounds better, and frankly, that's not a bad thing. However, doing the setup of his two subwoofers, Odyssey began by having him adjust the volume dial on each subwoofer independently until a readout on the screen showed 75 dB. One of his subwoofers ended up with the volume dial much lower than the other. Even with those volume dial adjustments, though, Odyssey still wound up setting the summed subwoofer output trim level to negative 10 dB. So is this normal? That is very odd. That is all.
Well,
I
yeah, I
think
mean, it's a little odd, yeah.
I
It's
think that
certainly not unheard of.
no, it's definitely not unheard of. Okay, so I know Rob's got a better suggestion than me, but when I first heard this, I was a little perplexed. So I'm going to go first so that Rob can be smart. Um,
Okay.
so my first thought was I'm now no longer going to trust Odyssey to set these levels. Not that it can't do it, but I'm going to set them myself. So I would go back and then with my trusty SPL meter, I assume you have one, Wilson. I would set that up on a stand. I have a camera camera
You know,
tripod that I
tripod.
use, and I would put that in a place, and I would turn off one sub. I would set the volume trim to negative 3 dB. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, when you're
Yes.
yeah,
I
when you're
would set
starting
the
out, yeah.
trim on the subwoofer on the receiver to negative 3 dB. I would play a test tone through through one of the
Or
subs.
positive 3 dB, wouldn't you? Because you're starting with the 1, so you go positive 3 dB for the first one, and then by the time you combine them, you bring it back down to 0, and it should be. should
That's
be
right.
correct.
That's right. It always takes me like 5 minutes to figure that out. Math's hard. Anyway, so plus 3 dB on one, and then you run the test tone. Then you set it so it's 75. You change the volume on the sub till it's 75. Do the same thing on the other one. Change the volume on the sub till it's 75. Then you turn them on together. You turn the volume down on the trim level down to 0.
Hmm.
Now you should be very, very close to 75 dB with both subs playing at the same time.
Right.
And then you run Odyssey. And if Odyssey makes you make adjustments, or if it then sets it to -10, I would probably call Odyssey at this point. I would call Gene and go, Gene, what the hell's going on? And Gene would probably know. But now you can call Rob, and Rob would say,
Oh, yes. Well, before going ahead and calling them, what this is sort of indicating to me, especially because there's the first part where when you have one of the AV receivers that has multi-Q XT32 with sub EQ HT, where it can adjust two subwoofers sort of independently. What it first does is it plays a test tone, just pink noise, out of just one subwoofer at a time. And that's where you have your microphone in your primary listening position. It's playing the pink noise out of one subwoofer at a time. And on your TV screen, it will have a live readout that you're supposed to adjust your subwoofer's volume dial, the one that's actually physically on your subwoofer, until it reads 75 dB. So the fact that he has two subwoofers in two different places in his room, and one of them started out by having to have its own volume dial turned way lower than the other one, that tells me that that subwoofer, compared to where the microphone was for that initial measurement, you happen to be in a big gigantic peak. And this is not surprising. When it's one subwoofer playing, it's very, very likely and possible that your seat might happen to be in a big peak or a big null. Now, that's only really going to apply to a handful of frequencies, but nevertheless, you're in a gigantic peak. So the first thing I would do, since the whole idea of having two subwoofers is that it doesn't really matter if one of them produces a big peak. Once both of them are playing together, you shouldn't really have that same thing happening. But what you could try to do first of all is, that's a live readout that's happening on your screen. I would move the microphone while that pink noise is playing from the subwoofer where the first time you went through this, it told you had to turn the volume dial way down just to get to 75 dB. Because I would suspect that even if you move the microphone 1 foot or 2 feet, especially if you moved it 5 or 6 feet, that you would see that readout all of a sudden go way, way down because you'd be moving into a null. Or it would sort of level out and you'd have
it
to
would
bring the
move out
volume
of the
down
peak.
back up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a case where moving the microphone even like 1 foot, and this could be forward or backward. So you're not moving it, side to side into one of the side seats. You're still staying in line with your primary listening position, but moving the microphone forward or backward might bring you out of that big bass mode where you're getting this huge peak, which is, I suspect, what's happening. So, even then, once it sums them together and it plays the subwoofer test tone, it's still, the microphone at the primary listening position is still set inside the peak for that sub. So that's why it's bringing it down even further. That would be what I suspect. So I think it's time to move the microphone. It might reveal to you that some adjustment in where that second subwoofer is placed, or some adjustment in where your seat is placed, might be necessary.
Yeah, it sounds to me like if you can start moving that mic around, it makes a big, big difference. Like what
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about. You are going to want to try to move that sub if you can. You might not be able
Yeah,
to, but you
yeah.
might want to
And
move that sub.
it literally might be 1 foot. Like, that can
Yeah,
make all the difference. So, I mean, the only other possibility that ran through my head is you might have like crazy reverberation. I mean, you would probably know this just by
yeah.
listening
One
to
would
it, but
hope.
like your room might be ringing like crazy because Odyssey is
You
looking at the
have a
time
door
domain
that's
too.
vibrating on the same frequency as the sub, because
I
that
don't
might
really,
be it.
I don't really mean that. I just mean, the bass note plays and it reverberates in
Yeah,
your
yeah, yeah,
room.
yeah.
Because Odyssey is looking in both the frequency and the amplitude and the time domains. So if something is ringing for a long time, Odyssey is going to try and knock that down so that all of that reverberation doesn't make the sound drag on way longer and way louder than it's supposed to. If that's the case, then it's time for some bass traps, because that's going to be the only way you're going to solve that.
Yeah, that might be this. That's certainly not going to hurt anything if you don't have some of those
Right.
home. Wilson also would like to know what we think about the Pinnacle speakers as a brand. They seem to sell for quite affordable prices online. I know that Audio Guru sells them. Other than that, I'm not really sure. I should have called Clint and asked him if he had heard them, because I think he's tested a lot of that stuff over there, at least, played with it.
Mhm.
So I don't know that if he has opinion. If he does, maybe he'll comment, and I'll mention it on the later podcast. He knows that they also offer some isobaric subwoofers. That's where you have a driver behind a driver, and both of them are active and working together and pushing each other in and out. Um, just stupid. But anyways, which we mentioned before as being a somewhat rare design these days. So what do we think of Pinnacle? Well, have you heard Pinnacle, Rob?
I haven't heard them in person. Nope.
Me neither.
Yeah.
So that being said, I did a little bit of searching. There is not a lot of information out there about them. I drummed up a couple of professional reviews,
Hmm.
seem to be fairly highly regarded. I will say that the speakers seem maybe on the laid back side. Uh, the ones I've seen, the reviews I've seen, maybe a little bit forgiving. Well, that's why I say laid back. The top end might have a bit of a roll off, though. They do seem to have
Ah.
a somewhat of a waveguide or a horn on their tweeter, so it's a little bit unusual. But it seems like they get good reviews. The subwoofers don't get good reviews, so that'll tell you something about isobaric right there, I guess. Uh,
Well, not necessarily that, but
Not necessarily that, but yeah, you know what I mean. So yeah, they seem fine. I mean,
yeah. I mean,
if you like
they've been
them,
around. They've been around since the 1970s. They're a family-owned company, and up until now, they've largely just sold through custom installers and the like. So that's why they're not really widely seen. They haven't been in any sort of, main large consumer retailers, and now they are sort of venturing into online. I mean, just looking at the basic design of the speakers, the way the drivers are laid out, the type of drivers they're using, and all of that looks very reasonable. All of that, nothing there is screaming at me, oh, this looks like a terrible design of a speaker. So I have
there's
no.
the one that has like a port near a tweeter that bothered
Is
me.
that them? I thought
That's
that was
them
somebody
too. They
else.
both did
Oh,
them.
that's them too.
They
Okay.
both had one. Yeah, yeah. I'm not saying that you can't have a port next to a tweeter. I know the Usher audio bookshelves had a port. I think that was right between like it's off to the side, but near
Hmm.
the tweeter and the woofer, which I thought was odd then too. But it worked okay. So like I said, I don't begrudge anybody their speaker design until I hear it and hear that it doesn't sound good. But I always kind of wonder about that because you're trying to move air with the tweeter,
Uh-huh.
and then you're moving air with the woofer, and the woofer is moving air in and out of the port.
Hmm.
Kind of think you shouldn't be doing that out right within a couple of centimeters of each other. So
I mean, the port and the tweeter shouldn't have any overlapping frequencies really,
they
but
shouldn't.
the lower frequencies are considerably higher power than the treble frequencies.
Yeah,
So yeah, and low frequencies can definitely impact high frequencies
yeah.
through
Well,
modulation
that's what I'm
distortion.
thinking. It's like
Yeah.
if you think about the way that these things generally work, you're trying to really get time alignment on that
Hmm.
woofer, the tweeter, and then you've got a port right there that's basically out of phase with the
Hmm.
woofer. You know, I'm thinking that's not where you want that to be right there. I think maybe someplace else would be a better place. I don't know that on the side of a pyramid is a good idea,
Oh yeah.
but not right next to the tweeter. But then again,
They should have
I'm not a
just
speaker
snipped off the
designer.
top of that pyramid and made that a port. Make it a little.
It
They
would
should
look
made it
like
a
an
little
ice
dunce
cream
cap.
cone.
Make it a little dunce cap so like the top of the pyramid is actually a little bit bigger than the body, so the air could come
Oh,
down
you know
along
what?
the
Somebody
sides.
put a flower in it. It would be a flower. It would be a flower vase in the end.
Nice.
Somebody would definitely put a flower in that. So that's a bad idea. Anyhow, so yes, go ahead, Rob. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Oh no, I didn't really have anything. I mean, yeah, this is tough. I mean, without having heard them, so yeah, this is totally one of those ones. If they interest you for some particular reason, or you're looking at some used ones or something like that, yeah, I mean, nothing about them is jumping out at me and saying absolutely avoid them. Nothing about them is jumping out at me and saying, oh, these look like they're the best deal ever. They look totally reasonable. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's about all I can say by looking
Yeah,
at them.
I wasn't seeing. I shouldn't really look up prices, which I probably should have. But yeah, I mean, you
They
just
seem
kind
to be in
of
like the five, six, $700
yeah, it
range.
seems all right. So
Yeah,
I mean, they've been around long enough where you gotta yeah. At some point, you go, well, if they've been around for what is it now, 35 years or 30,
40 some odd
40
years.
years, something. They certainly something. They're not doing something wrong. So we'll see. All right, Dennis. Okay, Barney says that Dennis
Erskine.
Erskine. Really, his name is Erskine. I wish my last name was Erskine. Uh, from the Erskine Group, of course he named it that, a high-end installation company, was recently on the Home Theater Geeks podcast, and he was unequivocal that a room's acoustics must have completely different optimizations for surround sound versus two-channel stereo, and therefore one room cannot serve both purposes. What are our opinions? Um, yeah.
Oh
I
man.
have a real problem with anybody who says anything unequivocally. I don't. I rarely say anything unequivocally in my life, but certainly not about things like room optimization. I think you can make the case that what he's saying is not wrong. If you wanted to absolutely tune a room for two-channel, and you wanted to absolutely tune a room for surround sound, they wouldn't necessarily be the same room. You know, if you took the same space and you absolutely tuned it as fine-tuned for those two different things, you can make the case that they would not be identical rooms when you got to in the end. I mean, that's the cost no object. You know, tons of measurements, worrying about where
Right.
sound is bouncing, everything else. I can see where that could be not an untrue thing. That being said, a room that sounds good for two-channel is going to sound good for surround and vice versa. I think that you cannot say that it's not. I just can't imagine that you would go into a room that was optimized for two-channel, you would add four more, was it three more speakers in the sub,
Hmm.
and it would be like, oh god, this is terrible. You would not think that. You would not think that. It's just not possible.
So yeah, one of the things he said on the podcast when I listened to it, and yeah, I mean, this definitely pricked up my ears because one of the things he said is that when you're dealing with a two-channel only stereo system, the room becomes your surround sound processor. That was one of the ways that he put it. So in other words, if you're using a 5.1 or a 7.1 speaker system, and then you use some sort of ambience extraction program is the terms he used, but that's talking like Dolby Pro Logic 2
Yeah.
or DTS Neo
It's just
6
called
or Neo
Dolby
X or
Surround
whatever.
now.
Yeah, Dolby Surround. Yeah, one of these programs that takes a two-channel recording and expands it to use all 5 or 7 speakers. So when you're doing that, of course, then your ambient sound around you, behind you, even above you now with Dolby Surround, those things are actually coming out of speakers, and therefore the room itself will be tuned to have a lot less reverberation, a lot, basically a deader room. That a surround sound room will be a deader room because you don't need any sort of echoes or reverberation. Those aren't desirable things when the sounds are
And he
actually coming
thinks
from
that
speakers
echoes
around
and
you.
reverberations are a desirable thing in a two-channel setup. That doesn't make any
Well,
sense.
not really, but just that, he's saying that in order to get a sense of sounds coming from all around you, as though you were in the venue, the live venue where a live performance were being made, and it's only coming from 2 speakers, that your room then has to act as the surround sound processor, essentially meaning it has to reflect some sound back to you. It can't be a dead room because then it will sound dead. Now, the big issue I have with that is that it is presupposing that you're listening to a recording because here's the big problem when you're listening to a recording that has ambience in the recording. So they took microphones to a large concert venue, they took it to an outdoor auditorium, or they took it into a jazz club or something, and that's where they took the microphones and they made the recording there. That means in the recording are some ambient sounds. Now, if you play those out of speakers and then your room also reflects sound back to you, you're getting reflected sound information twice. You're getting the
Yeah.
reflected sound information that came from the recording, and you're getting reflected sound information that came from your room. And those two things are going to be telling your brain two different things. One of them is going to be saying, hey, I'm in a big auditorium or I'm in a small jazz club or whatever. And then the other ones that are coming from your own room are saying, no, you're in your own room. And so this whole idea of your room being the surround sound processor, that really only applies if you're talking about a close mic'd, a studio recording where there's very little ambient information in the recording itself. And then I'll totally agree. You put that type of recording played through only 2 speakers in quite a dead room where your room reflects very little sound back to you, and you get this odd phantom voice that seems to be coming from nowhere. Because that's all that's in the recording is this one clear voice with these clear instruments that have no ambient information attached to them. So to me, typically is
I
that
don't
it
know.
depends on the recording.
I don't know that I've seen that many, heard that many recordings where they're not already doing some mixing that's spreading out that sound somewhat. And
I suppose, yeah.
I mean,
Because I mean,
I don't.
I've definitely heard close mic recordings where specifically the singer's voice
Yeah.
is
Oh yeah.
very isolated,
Yeah.
right? And you put that into a dead room and it does sound weird. You have this phantom voice coming from straight ahead of you that has
But we're not
no
going for dead
reflection in a
rooms,
dead
though,
room.
are we? Is
No, no.
anybody here really going for a dead room? If we're
No, but he was just he was implying that the surround sound room will be a deader room than
yeah.
a two-channel dedicated room. So yeah, I certainly can't agree with the unequivocal part with it because to me it depends too much on the recording. And if there is a recording where they took the microphones to a large concert venue and there's a whole bunch of ambient information in the recording itself, I don't want my room also reflecting a whole bunch of sound. At that point, I would want a deader room so that I'm only hearing the ambient sound that's actually in the recording itself. So yeah, I can't
I
say
don't know.
I
I've
agree
got
with this.
some.
I can see a bit where he's coming from.
I can. I can some of my recordings, some of my test material, which one in particular I got many years ago when I went to Bang& Olufsen. They gave us a test CD, and it starts off where it's just a single female voice by itself, middle of the kind of middle of the front sound stage, and there's
Hmm.
almost nothing else. There's a little bit of a reverberation of her,
Hmm.
kind of echoing in there, but there's very little else. I never took it to Gene's room, which at the time was much deader than it
Hmm.
is now. I think he's sort of livened it up a bit, and I never thought, oh, that sounds unnatural. It sounded the way that it's supposed to sound. It sounded like a person had recorded in a very, very quiet, a very quiet studio, and we were hearing the purity of that
Right.
recording without reverberation, which is what the artist, or the mixer or whomever, intended. And if the room was suddenly reverberant, in order to spread that sound out a
Hmm.
little bit, I would feel like that would be an unnatural presentation to
Yeah, I mean,
me.
I just
So
come
I don't
back to
agree.
I mean, I like the idea. Chris said this too during the interview, right? Like, there's essentially one correct combination of absorption and diffusion in a room because the idea is to have no matter what frequency gets played, it will have the same response frequency wise and it will have the same decay time as all the other frequencies. And in
Yeah.
order to get that to happen, you do need a mix of absorption and diffusion. It doesn't just happen willy-nilly or, by accident. Maybe it'll happen by luck if you're super lucky, but to get all the frequencies to decay at the same rate is a bit of a challenge. And to me, that's optimal. That's optimal for two channel. That's optimal for surround
Yeah.
because it means that whatever speaker is playing, wherever it is in the room, its sound will decay at the same rate across all frequencies. And to me,
I,
that's accurate.
I think you can make more of a case that as opposed to true surround where you're getting five channels. Let's say five channels. It's true
Sure.
surround. When you start adding in height channels and width channels and above channels and everything else,
Mm-hmm.
well, all these places where sound would have sort of bounced normally, you're limiting the number of places you can put normal reflection. You know, so now you've got almost got diffusion in these places because you've got the speaker hanging there. Uh, or sitting there on a stand or something like that. I guess you can make kind of a case for that, but I just don't think that this is. I think it's just somebody trying to get everybody to. First of all, it makes good business sense from his standpoint because now he can sell two systems. No, you can't have the same room. You're going to have to put $100,000 worth of gear in this room for your two channel and $300,000 for your surround sound. So that's with tip, it's a million. So yeah, I just don't. I
Yeah,
just don't
I
agree.
I can't say I agree with that.
Yeah, I don't. All right, so Fred R took my spreadsheet advice to heart. He has a 20-foot wide by 18. Well, I'm sorry, 15.5 foot long and by 8 foot tall room. It's about 2,500 cubic feet. It's about a medium room, so they say. His
Hmm.
top priorities are smooth, even bass with deep extension. Loud output is not particularly important,
Mm.
so you say, but smooth and deep, you're going to get loud whether you like it or not. So that's the way it goes, dude. You just turn the volume down. Fred is trying to sort out what will give him the best value for his money. It seems as though he'd like to keep the price under $800. Yeah, I'd like to too. I don't think anyone can do that, but there's a lot of questions about trade-offs and matchups. For example, given his room sizes and desires, how much better would be a single SVS PB 2000 versus a PB 1000? What if you were comparing a single PB 2000 to a pair of HSU STF2s? And how can you figure out where a multiple subwoofer setup would fit into the Audioholics room size ratings? Let's go with that one first.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't really. I mean, the room size ratings. You're not going for more output with dual subs. Generally speaking, you're going for flatter frequency response across the range. If you're going for more output, you stack them, and then you're only getting like 3 dB boost anyway.
6. If you stack them, you're getting 6. Yeah.
Six.
Yeah.
So you're not getting a ton of extra output anyway. So when you're buying a pair, you're looking at whatever size it is for your room, and that if it says it's good for medium-sized rooms. By the way, any of the subs, just about any of the subs except for that crappy M8 one, is going to be good for your room. So I'd never seen that.
As far as output goes, yeah.
Yeah, as far as outputs go, you're
Yeah. This is one of the things when you start looking at subwoofers that can genuinely extend down to 20 hertz or maybe even a little bit lower. By virtue of being able to extend that low, they are going to be plenty loud, whether it's one or two of them, in a medium-sized room. Now, maybe in the future he'll be looking at he's in a large room or even, what Audioholics would call an extreme room, and maybe he's, considering subwoofers that are sort of right on the edge, the what they're rated at in terms of the output of one subwoofer is right on the edge. So, I mean, all you would have to do is add 3 dB. Because if you've got two subwoofers and they're on opposite sides of the room, the midpoints of the front and the back wall, or the midpoints of the two side walls, or diagonally opposite corners, when you set up your two subwoofers like that, you basically get 3 decibels of extra output. That's more or less what happens. So if you're right on the, the dividing line of one of the Audioholics ratings, then just add 3 dB, and that'll give you an idea. So that takes care of that part. But how about his other questions here? Because they are a good consideration.
All right, so how much better would be an SVS PB 2000 versus a PB 1000? So the 2000's got a 12-inch driver, right? Is that right?
Yes, it does.
And
yep.
the PB has a 10-inch driver. I don't know the extension on those exactly. I think the PB 1000 goes down to...
It goes down to about 19.
Yeah, and the 2000 is just a little bit lower than that, I think.
Both
the price...
These are the ported versions.
Yeah, these are the ported versions of the boxes. One's going to be about $500 more for a dual sub setup. I'm only really he's looking for. He did say flat frequency response, right?
Yeah, and this is that is something we can probably settle right away, which is that we would very much recommend that you get 2 subwoofers because out of the things he described that he wants, that is going to be the only way, right? Now, I don't blame him for thinking, okay, you know what, I can get one PB 1000 right now. That's a $500 subwoofer, including shipping. The PB 2000 is what? That's $800, right?
Right.
Including shipping there. So the 2000 would be right up to the max of his budget. Trying to get 2 of the PB 1000s right now would put him over his budget that he's aiming for. So it's like, well, is there enough of a difference because he's not worried about output? Now, I mean, some people have made the direct comparisons. They've purchased both, listened to the PB 1000, listened to the PB 2000, and aside from output, there are some benefits from going up to, the more powerful amplifier, the, more robust driver that's being used in there. So there are some advantages in terms of just transient response and clarity and things like that. It's not as though it's only output that's being affected.
Right.
So, if it were a matter of strictly choosing one or the other, then the PB2000 does have some advantages, not just in output, but in overall sound quality.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't choose one PB2000 and max out your budget. I wouldn't do that.
No, I wouldn't either. So what if he's comparing a single PB2000 to a pair of HSU STF2s? And those are the ones that go to around, what, mid-25s?
About 25. They're about minus 3 dB at 25 hertz.
Mid-25s, I said. That was stupid. I'm getting tired. Mid-20s. And the pair of I have it open. So we're gonna post his or links to his spreadsheets, I hope. So
it was a lot of work he put into that.
Yeah, I hope he was doing it because we're going to. The pair of HSU STF2s are 810 according to his spreadsheet, which we think that he maybe got some of these wrong.
Well, not wrong. It's just that he mentioned in his email he was basically taking the full retail price, so he's not considering sales,
Mhm.
and the shipping cost, so he's including the shipping cost. All of that's fair, except for almost all of the Internet Direct subwoofer brands offer some sort of discount when you buy more than one subwoofer at the same time. So he's not accounting for any discounts in these unless it's listed. I think the SVS ones he has the correct
Yeah, the
prices for
SBS ones are
listed.
actually listed. You can go
Yeah,
to the dual
listed right on the
subwoofer
site.
stuff. So those are correct. The HSU
Yeah.
ones he may get see a little bit more of a discount
Yeah, it
for.
might be a little bit lower, and the shipping as well. Sometimes it's a little bit less than the individual cost because they're shipping them together.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
it might be a little bit lower.
okay. So what was the question again? I missed it.
Well, yeah,
I
one
missed it. I said,
PB2000 or a pair of HSU STF2s. That is tough because you are giving up a little bit of extension
you're
in
getting
terms of output.
a lot
Yeah,
of
in terms of
extension.
in terms of output, in terms of evenness and linearity and uniformity of the bass, and in terms of quality of the bass, the STF2s are going to be very satisfying. The one hiccup is the really deep extension.
Right.
So, yeah, this is a tough one because I totally respect setting a budget and saying, look, I want to stick to this budget and I want to get the absolute best I can, but I might have to make a little bit of a compromise somewhere. So,
Listen,
which one is it going to be?
honestly, I'm looking at this list, and when I looked at it, I looked at I looked at just about every single subwoofer up until about $1,000,
Hmm.
which put me on this list right around the two SVSs. The PB 1000 and SB 1000 is both the same price. And then almost into a single ULS 15, which is HS, which I think is big enough to rattle his entire stuff. Frankly, if you want evenness, you got to go with two subs. It just goes without saying. The question you have to ask yourself when you look at this list is that because right now he has it listed the HSU STF2s at 810. We think you might be able to get them a little bit cheaper than that, but you have to check it out and make sure.
Hmm.
But uh, so you're getting 25 hertz extension or so. You may see
Hmm.
a couple of extra dB below that. I mean, hertz below that.
That one
If
rolls off steep. I gotta say, it rolls off steep, so there
does it
isn't a whole
really?
lot of there isn't a whole lot of
All
room
right, so
gain.
let's say
Uh,
it's a hard 25.
yeah.
Well, the PB 1000 is going to get you down to about
Hmm.
19. Uh, without too much of a hassle. And the difference right here is $140 or $130, right? 130, $140.
140,
Yeah. So
yeah.
I would have a very hard time not saving up that extra $140
Right.
somehow. I would have a very hard time. I don't want you to say a couple of years from now, I wish I had gotten to the sub 20s because while you're going to enjoy those STF twos, which I
Hmm.
think you will, absolutely think you will, you're going to go.
Oh,
These things
they
sound
sound very good.
amazing. These things sound amazing. There is going to be this little thing in the back of your mind that goes, it's not subsonic. It's not so low that I literally cannot hear it.
Right.
That all I can do is feel it. I am not getting that. I'm getting very close to that. I'm getting a lot of the emotional impact of that, but I'm not getting that. And I think for $140 you would want to try. So this is for me. It's a clear. Any of the single subs loses out simply
Yep.
for virtue of you cannot get the evenness that you want.
Yeah.
And then when I'm looking at that PB 1000 versus that STF2, the duals of either one of those, I really think that you should go with the PB 1000s, the
A
SBS
pair
PB
of them.
1000s.
Yeah.
Yeah, the pair of them for 950.
Yeah, I have to agree with that 100%. Yeah, I mean, sometimes in this hobby, there are the cases where saving up that little bit of extra money is totally worth it. And hopefully that's the type of advice that anyone who's writing into a podcast like this one is looking for because
Yeah.
those situations exist sometimes. There are those times when it's really worth it. I would say this is one of them, given all the things that he said he wants to accomplish.
We
So
have
yeah.
been on this podcast a number of times and had people write in and ask us which ones they thought we should get. And we're like, you don't need any of those. You need this cheaper one. I don't know why you want to spend. Why you think you need this sub that will crush an auditorium. You have a bedroom. You do not need something this big. So we have been known to give advice about not spending so much. This is not that case. You were
Yeah,
right on the cusp of
that's
really,
right.
that's the thing. You were right on the cusp of being able to afford something. Now, if you were going to tell me, should I get the SVS PB 1000 or 2000, there's a $500 difference between those dual subs.
Uh-huh.
You know, uh, then we might have a different conversation, and it would depend on where your budget was. If it was right at 250, like 1250, and you were right in between the two, I'd be like, I don't know, dude. I don't know. I think you're going to be happy. I think you would be happy with either one. But in this case, I'm fairly certain you're going to have some regrets.
Now, I will throw out one other possible option that I am not even sure exists because we'll actually be talking about this tomorrow because we got some news that we'll be talking tomorrow about SVS and some of the things they've announced. So I won't go into that right. PC12 NSD that has now been moved out of their lineup in favor of a new subwoofer that we'll talk about tomorrow. I noticed that for one day, now when I go there, I'm automatically booted to their Canadian website, and I, for some reason, can't find a way to get back to their USA website. But when I'm looking at it right now, the PC12, so this is the cylinder version, the PC12 NSD isn't showing up at all anywhere on the site when I look at it. But for one day, it was there, and they were selling them for $500 a piece, which is a crazy good deal because the 12 NSD subs were the ones that preceded the 2000 series, not the 1000 series. The 1000 series was always below the 12 NSD subs. So the PC12 NSD for $500, ooh, that's a good deal. That's a really
Those are
good
the
deal.
cylinder subs. Those are the ones I have.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they
And
cross.
so if you could grab a pair of those, like I say, I don't even know if they're available, but if you call up SVS, they'll tell you. You can ask about them. If you
I
could
would
grab a
ask.
pair, if you could grab a pair of those for $1,000, oh man, is that worth it? That would be really, really worth it.
That would be worth it. So now we've talked you up from 810 to 950, and Rob wants to talk you back up to 1,000.
Well, they,
So
they might they might I don't imagine they'd give an even further discount for duels because that is a heavily discounted price. They used to be at least 700, right, individually.
I don't know.
The PC
All I know is I'm not getting
PC12
these back
NSDs.
now. Now they got new ones. I'm not getting these back. I'll buy from my door. What are you gonna do with them? You don't even sell these things anymore. Shut up, they're mine.
But anyway, I hope Fred, I hope to help. I hope that helps other people too who might be in a similar situation. But yeah, worth it in this case.
All right, last question, Tim. A couple of weeks ago, Tim told us about his unused theater in his basement from the '90s. After hearing our discussion, he probably just wants to replace everything he already had and start brand new. I am hoping that you will take at least one piece of that equipment out into a field and pull office space on it, just because you should. Pick up the pieces, though, because you don't want to litter. But now he's trying to make some purchasing decisions. One, here to say that it's a really bad time to buy an AV receiver. I don't remember saying that, except a lot. But if he doesn't care about 4K, is there anything we'd recommend around the $500 price point? X4000, is it still on sale?
Well, it appears to be sold out at Accessories for Less right now, and that's
Yeah.
650. So it's
No.
above the $500 price point.
He's still a little uncertain about buying refurbished from Accessories for Less anyway, so maybe he doesn't want to do that. Um,
So X2000.
yeah,
The
X2000.
X2000, you can definitely. I mean, if you get it at Accessories for Less, it's under $300. So I mean, it's like super. Like that's a good receiver, man. The
Yeah.
X2000 is a good receiver. If you don't care about 4K, then we're not worrying about any of this silliness with HDMI 2.0 and HDCP 2.2. Don't have to worry about any of that stuff. He hasn't mentioned anything about Atmos, so I don't think we're considering that either, and that would be out of the $500 price range at this point anyway.
Anyways, yeah.
So yeah, X2000, X3000. If you go Accessories for Less, X3000 would be
Did they
within
have
that
sub EQ on that one?
no, no,
Yeah,
you
it's
have
not
to get up to the
X4000.
X4000. Yeah.
Okay. Well, check
So
out those, or pretty easy. You know, anything from Yamaha, really. Denon, Marantz.
yeah, I mean the Denon X series is so nice because you get
Yeah,
Multi-EQ XT. Right? You have to go up to the X4000 to get XT32,
yeah, but
but
you get
Multi-EQ
XT. Yeah.
XT is a nice program. I mean, out of the ones that you can find on a under $500 price point, that
Hmm.
is absolutely my hands down vote for an auto setup and a room correction system. So yeah, I really like the Denon X series. And on the whole Accessories for Less tip, I mean, Ray put this really well in one of our chats afterwards. Refurbished, when it comes to electronics, if it's officially refurbished, not some weird gray market out of the back of a van type of refurbished. officially refurbished, where it's actually coming directly from the manufacturers, as is the case with accessories for less, that can actually be better than brand new. Because refurbished means they had to inspect it. They had to inspect that unit, not one out of the batch of brand new units, which is how things are normally inspected. No, if it's refurbished, they inspected that unit and made sure that it's working, and that's the one you're getting. So it's almost like a secret sale in that you're getting a unit you know has been inspected and it's at a discounted price. There is no reason to avoid accessories for less. You're getting it directly from the manufacturers. You're getting a 1-year manufacturer's warranty. There's no 90-day silliness or something like that.
Yeah.
So I hope to put your mind at ease because they're a great place to buy.
Yep. Yep. All right. He also heard our praise of EMP Tech speakers, but does our recommendation include all of their lineups, including the compact speaker systems? Yes. Only thing I don't generally recommend from EMP or any RBH really is their subs, which have not been great. But their new one for EMP is I think there's a review on Audioholics that doesn't say they suck. So in the past we've mostly been like, oh yeah, they're kind of okay, but you can do a lot better for less. Yeah, their speakers. I've never heard an RBH speaker that I didn't like. I hate to say that, but it's true. Even their small stuff, you're like, geez. I mean, it's all. Another thing that gets me about their stuff too is you usually pick it up and go, that's a little heavier than I expected it to be. You know what I mean? It's like no matter what size it is, it's always a little bit heavier than you thought it might be.
Smaller cabinets, larger magnets, good stuff.
It's yeah. So, but does that mean that everything sounds equally good? No. I mean, you go up to their status acoustics line, and it blows everything below it away. They're using top of the line drivers, top of the line crossover, top of the line cabinet, top of the line and everything. Well, of course, it's going to blow everything away. But you can hear the kernel of that in everything else. So all the way down. So you get those small compact speakers. You're like, these sound better than other small compact speakers.
Right.
They don't sound better than the bigger EMP Tech speakers, but they certainly sound. You can certainly hear that same sound. They're the kind of line that there's a coherency through it because it's one guy basically, that's doing all the design, and Shane Rich is doing all that design, and he is, you can absolutely hear it through the line.
Yes, when some care is put into small, inexpensive compact speakers, oh man, can that make a difference versus the, so many of the smaller compact speakers, it was like, yeah, what are the cheapest drivers we can get? What is the most mass-produced flimsy cabinet? Yeah, and let's just throw it all in there kind of willy-nilly and throw one resistor on there as a crossover and call it a day. So when a little bit of care is given to it, it does sound leagues better.
You're shocked how many speakers there are out there that have nothing but a resistor between the tweeter and the... I mean,
just on the bottom of the tweeter, that's all it is.
It's right. There's a resistor and a wire that goes to the speaker terminal. I mean, that's it. That crossover, the high-end crossover components from Denmark.
Oh yes, we will try to say that it's an advantage because there's nothing in between the signal and the purity of the sound. We eliminated so many things from the signal.
Tweeter from burning up. Okay, and now if you had about $1,500 to spend on all of the speakers, including subwoofers, what would we recommend? We would recommend you figure out a way to buy those subwoofers we just talked about with Fred. Honestly.
Yes, we should do number 3 at the same time because it all ties in.
The message of 2 subwoofers being better than one has gotten through to him loud and clear, but he's thinking of keeping the subwoofer budget around $500 total, which would be two $250 sub. Would two $250 subs really be better than one $500 sub? No. Not
That's
at all.
a case where you've gone too far. You've gone too far in the 2 subs are better than 1 category because at $250, I mean, unless you're finding some fantastic deal on a SVS sub or an HSU sub that happens to be on eBay or something like that, and there's 2 of them, unless barring a situation like that, you get down to $250 subs, you are giving up a lot of performance. At that point, it's better to have one $500 sub.
It would almost be criminal to call something that cheap a subwoofer, because almost certainly doesn't play below 40 hertz. It's not going to be the case. If you're only going to spend $500 in the sub, find a $500 sub that you can afford. See if those PC 12 NSTs, whatever they are,
the cylinders.
The cylinders from are still around, and then get one of those from SVS and say, okay, someday I'll get another sub that doesn't suck. But you can't do that. I mean, you can't you can, but please don't. Please don't
Now,
buy two $250 subs. It just don't do that. You can buy
working
$500 subs that are
Oh yeah.
decent.
Oh heck yeah. Yeah. So working backwards a little bit though, we had a $1,500 budget total for this is five speakers and hopefully two subwoofers. So if you're willing to move off of that $500 combined for two subwoofers and actually spend more and get two subwoofers, then there are still lots of very good options for speakers where all in total, five speakers and the two subs, you're going to end up being around $1,500. So do you want to go with yours first, or should I just rattle off mine? I had a few.
Yeah, so he mentioned EMP Tech, so I looked up
Mm-hmm.
EMP Tech to see what EMP Tech had. They do have, if you look at they have some compact lines. I didn't look at those. I don't really know if you're really interested in small speakers or what exactly you're interested in. But their normal line of speakers, I think that you could get
The Impression series.
the Impression series. You can get the 4 bookshelves, and their smaller center channel, I think, is 650. And then from there, yeah, you're kind of traipsing over $1,500, but you can get the the $950 worth of SVS subs uh, that we were talking, and then you're about what, $1,600 total. So
Yeah.
that's pretty
Or
close.
you can go with the two HSU STF2
Yeah,
subwoofers
and then you'll
because
be on budget.
yep, you'll be on budget there. So I mean, yeah, this is another case where because I remember his room, I think it was about 15 by 18 or so. So this is another case where just sheer output is concerned. So the
Yeah,
STF2s, like we said, if a top priority for you is getting right down to 20 hertz, then you're going to want to spend more, and you're going to want to get a pair of those PB1000s, probably at least. But if you're one that I'm okay with 25 hertz, and plenty of people are, then you can spend a little bit more on the speakers. Like Tom says, that package of five EMP Impression series speakers would be great. I would go along the same lines, just as an alternative. Not saying it's better, but something about them you might like better. If you get five of the Ascend Acoustics HTM 200 SE speakers, these are the ones they're about 6.5 inches thick from front to back. They're sealed. They're two 4.25, 4-inch drivers, something like that. They're around 4 inches, two 4-inch drivers, and a really good tweeter. The tweeter is what sets them apart, in my opinion. But you can get five of those, five HTM 200s, and a pair of HSU STF2 subwoofers, and that will be under $1,500, including shipping. I worked out the prices.
yeah.
So that would be a good alternative.
I,
Now,
I'm gonna go next.
yep, okay,
Okay. So if you want to go compact, you can go with the NHT Super Zeros.
right.
They're $100 a pop. They're little speakers. Sound really good. Great reputation. It's well deserved. We reviewed them on Audioholics, or Andrew did, or I wrote it, but Andrew said it. That was 100. They're $100 a pop. $100 for 5 speakers. Are all timbre matched, and now you have $1,000 to spend on
Yep.
subs. And you've got these little compact speakers where, if you decide to upgrade later, they'll be great in bedrooms. They'll be great in, as distributed audio. They're really easy to hang from ceilings. They're just nice little speaker that you can kind of grow old with and pass them down to your kids, because they're always going to be a good little speaker.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, once you can get to $1,000 to spend on a pair of subwoofers, then you're golden, because then you can definitely get the pair of PB1000s from SVS, or hopefully, if you call up SVS and get them before they're all gone, you could maybe get a pair of the PC12 NSD cylinder subs. So I'll go the same route, spend $1,000 or $950 on the dual subwoofers from SVS. That you could get the Pioneer Andrew Jones Generation speaker. You could actually get the pair of towers and the center and a pair of bookshelf speakers. Now, there's actually a kind of cool alternative. I'm not normally into this stuff, but this looks like a good deal and a good way to go. There's a company called Philharmonic Audio. They make no bones about it. They say right on their own website they are getting those Pioneer speakers. This is the FS52 towers and the C22 center and the unfortunately named BS22 bookshelf speakers. That's what
At least it doesn't
bookshelf
say
speakers.
anus in it anywhere.
No, that's true.
Got
Yeah.
that going for it.
But Philharmonic takes those speakers, they buy them wholesale from Pioneer, and then they actually just swap out the tweeter. And if there is one criticism of the Pioneer speakers, it's that the tweeter is not fantastic. It's decent for the price that you're paying, but it could be a little bit improved. And a lot of people have actually done this themselves. They've purchased the Pioneer speakers and then got one of these VIFA tweeters. The VIFA is the brand. One of these VIFA tweeters that fits right in. It works as a drop-in replacement, and have seen some improvements, both measurable and, according to them,
It's not a
audible.
ring radiator. It's not one of those ring
No,
radiators.
it's not one of the ring. Yeah, you wouldn't get that for this price point. But yeah, so basically Philharmonic is doing this. They're charging about a $30 premium compared to if you just bought the Pioneer ones, per pair. So what you could do is you go to Philharmonic Audio, you get these upgraded Pioneer speakers. You get towers if you happen to want towers, the center and a pair of bookshelf speakers. All of that together is like $540. And that would let you get the $950 combined PB1000s. So I really like that one. If you can fit tower speakers, I kind of really like that option myself.
There you go.
That would be a nice system.
Oh wait, he's got one
Sound
more
good.
question, doesn't he?
He does.
I started reading.
On time.
As you were just like talking. Lastly, he's looking at front projectors. Is there any good reason to spend more than about $1,000? He's considering the HC 2030 and has a small interest in 3D, but only if it works really well at home. Generally speaking, my experience with sub $1,000 projectors, obviously you're going to be losing a lot of convenience features like lens shifting and maybe
large zoom ranges.
Yeah, maybe even calibration, decent calibration options. On top of that, the thing you're mostly going to notice is that they're going to be louder. They're just going to be louder. They're going to be up there humming away.
And their black
fanboy.
levels are definitely not going to be as deep. That is just unavoidable.
So, is there a reason? Yes, you'll get a better picture. You'll be able to place it easier. You'll be able to get a bigger image or a smaller image depending on what you need. The overall image quality, the color, the black levels, and everything will be better. So yeah, there's lots of reasons to spend more than $1,000 on one. The question I think you're really trying to ask is there any reason you to spend more than $1,000 on one?
Right.
I don't know. What do you care about? Do you care that there's a big image and that's it? Or do you care that there's a big image that doesn't have macro blocking in it and that has nice deep dark blacks and really vibrant colors and all that? Are you half deaf and you're not going to worry about the projector making a bunch of noise, or is that going to drive you nuts if there's so much as a hum coming from above you? These are questions you have to answer. So yeah, I got lots of reasons why you should spend more than $1,000.
Yeah, I mean, so that said, what you can get these days for $1,000 is darn impressive.
Yeah, it really is.
Like, you don't have to go back that many years where the same level of performance would have cost you like $5,000. So it's not that the $1,000 level is not impressive, because it is. It's darn impressive these days. I have to say, if you are considering 3D, I would strongly urge you to consider a DLP projector. There's no way you're doing a two projector setup and all the craziness of having passive 3D. That is an absurd trail to go down unless you have tons of money to throw at this. When you're talking about 3D at home from front projectors, I have to say the DLP ones look so much better because no matter what you're doing, you're using these active shutter glasses, and DLP has so much less crosstalk than the LCD versions, because the LCD versions, the image just doesn't refresh fast enough. The image is lingering because LCD just can't flick off as quickly as DLP can. So the DLP ones look great. There's a good option in the $1,000 price range, which is the BenQ W. The one I'm familiar with is the 1070. I know they just released the 1075, which is, like, according to all the reviews, almost nothing changed. So it seems like they just kind of refreshed the model number, and I don't know what else, maybe made some minor change, but essentially they're the same, the W1070 and the 1075. DLP projectors, 6 times speed color wheel, so nobody's seeing rainbows on this thing. None bright. The black levels are not like as good as a JVC $7,500 projector, but nice contrast because it is so bright, and the 3D looks really good on it. And like Tom said, the one downside, the fan is probably a bit more noticeable, but because it's so bright, you can run it in the low power mode as long as you're not doing like a 135-inch screen. If you're like a 100 to 110-inch screen size, low power mode, plenty bright, quieter fan. So I honestly think you'd be really happy with that projector. I really do.
How much is that?
So it's like 950. So it's under $1,000.
I
So
should try to get one of those
yeah.
in for review. I have got a
Mhm.
BenQ contact. I haven't. I should try to get one of those in for review. It's such a pain in
Yeah.
the butt to measure projectors, though. I don't have the right equipment for it, so I'd have to just sort of eyeball it, and I hate doing that.
Yeah. So I mean, the one drawback there is that it according to I haven't been able to see this properly on the 1075, the new one. Some people are saying it has a tiny little bit of vertical lens shift, and other people are saying it actually only has automatic keystone correction, which
Ugh.
I'm more inclined to believe the automatic keystone correction thing. What keystone correction does is that if you tilt the projector slightly, which might be necessary in order to get it to hit your screen wherever you've placed it, if you tilt it a little bit, then you get sort of a trapezoidal shape. Because now if let's say you're tilting it upward, now the top of the image is actually a little bit farther away than the bottom of the image, so you get this sort of trapezoid shape. Keystone correction, since a trapezoid is the shape of a keystone, they use some processing to basically chop off the sides. So you've chopped off some of the pixels, which means the whole thing has to be rescaled and the whole image has to be adjusted, manipulated digitally. Nobody's a big fan of that because now you've gone away from perfect one-to-one pixel mapping from your lovely Blu-ray sources. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of keystone correction, but at least it's sort of in there. Your image will always be square with this thing. So that's a minor downside. If you set it up carefully, you don't have to deal with it.
Yeah, yeah. The keystone we generally tell people to stay away from that because
Yeah.
it's digital process, it's signal processing,
Yeah.
and if this thing's not good enough to have lens shift, you can imagine how well it's doing that. So, all right, that's our questions for this week or this day. We will
Today.
see you tomorrow with an equal number of questions.
Yes, we will.
If you do have some questions for us, please send them in. You have about 12 hours. Uh,
No, that's not. Anything that comes in now is going to next week.
You say that, but maybe not. You can reach us at the website, www.avrant.com. You go to Facebook, facebook.com/avrantpodcast. Leave a comment there, and we will answer that. You can email Rob at rob@avrant.com, Tom at avrant.com. Rob's Twitter handle is at FirstReflect, and I'm at avrant_Tom. Yay.
Hmm.
All right. That's part one of two. We will see you guys in 24 hours. For AV Rant, I'm Tom Andrew.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.
Well, we're not seriously doing an after thing tonight, right? Because that's not a thing that's happening.
Oh, well, that's up to you, man. We don't have to.
Okay, let me rephrase. I'm not doing an after thing tonight, and it's not because I don't want to talk to you, because I really do. I got up really early this morning, and I'm.
Well, do you wanna start one? I'll come in and then you just disappear, and I'll be there if
That's
anybody
fine.
shows up.
We'll
Okay.
start one in a couple of minutes, guys. Okay, give me 5 minutes. All right, bye.